Zeg Films.
Subscribe.
Hello and welcome to the anime review. Very recently I finally saw season 2 of Free Eternal Summer. This is the second season of the anime Free, which I've already reviewed the first season of on this channel, and I've also reviewed the first movie of Free on this channel, Free Starting Days. So one of the first things I love about this season is how it ties together the first season and the movie. It helps make this show feel like a much more continuous story, especially with how it brings in characters like Kitsumi and Kirishima from the movie into the show. I really love the choice to bring back those two characters, even if Kitsumi looks a lot like those anime Technoblade fan arts. So when I think about this season, I really think about it in two separate halves. The first half is really a bunch of unconnected 1 to 2 episode arcs that don't really add too much to the entire overall story, and mostly don't ever really come back at all. However, Makoto teaching little kids to swim is a really great arc for the show for various reasons. One, it helps give more depth to Makoto's character, and it helps expand his own arc from the beginning of the show, as well as really exploring where he plans to go after high school and where his character is going to go from here on out. But it also serves as a really great way to introduce Kitsumi back into the show, with Makoto teaching his little brother to swim and helping him become not afraid of swimming. Also, Nagisa's arc with his very strict parents and his trying to study and become better in school, though it is unconnected to the rest of the show, it does provide a much better depth for his character. It really gives depth to a character that otherwise doesn't have much of anything going on for him outside of being a funny and fun character to see. It helps show a bit more of their friendship and their connection as a team, and for what it's worth, it's also a very relatable and, I would say, very fun episode to watch. But I really would have liked to see that story fleshed out more, as well as Makoto's story with helping children learning to swim. I think it would have been very valuable if the entire first half of the season was primarily focused on those two arcs to help flesh out those two stories and give the whole thing a lot more depth and value to the overall show. That said, the first half of this season is very lighthearted, it's very fun, and I really enjoy a lot of the episodes and a lot of the arcs going on in it. It's full of episodes that I can certainly see myself going back and rewatching countless times from now on. The second half of this season is where it starts to become a lot deeper and a lot more great. It focuses a lot on each character's futures as individuals, especially Haru and Rin, but also everybody else on the team, and even plenty of background side characters that are only just introduced in the beginning of this season. It also really focuses on how far Iwatobi has come as a team, with talking about their past, talking about their founding, and how they've really grown together as one unique and individual group. It's really great to see Haru and Rin's friendship explored more, and especially see how their past was. We really didn't get to see much of that up until now. And in the episode where they go to Australia, it's a really great conclusion for Haru's arc, and it also provides a lot of interesting insight into what Rin's life was like in Australia, as we never got to see any of it, we just sort of heard about it. And it ties in very well to the overall themes of this show about characters' futures and looking for what they want to do with the rest of their lives. Speaking of that episode, I also really love that this show really went the extra mile in making everybody in Australia speak English.
What's the purpose of your visit?
なんて言ってる?
It's really weird to hear English in the original version of an anime, but I really love that they put in that effort for various reasons. Primarily, it just is more realistic. Obviously, people in Australia do not primarily speak Japanese, they primarily speak English, so it makes the show feel a little bit more realistic. But it also helps sort of widen the world of this show, like Haru talks about in this season, and show that there's a lot more to this world than what we've seen in just this one small town in Japan. And to top all of that off, it also makes Australia feel like a much more strange environment. It makes Haru feel more isolated and alone, and it makes us understand that more, as we're a lot more used to hearing all of the characters speaking Japanese. It's strange to hear Australians speaking English, and it's similar to how I'm sure Haru must feel in that circumstance, and I'm sure how most people would feel in a scenario where they're surrounded by people speaking a language they don't know. The final episode of this season is a very cheesy and rather recap-like one. But I honestly think that with this season and with a show like this, with this sort of style, that fits really well. And I honestly believe that this season has deserved a cheesy, recap-y episode. Mainly because of the fact that this season is the end of high school for these kids, and from now on their lives are going to be very, very different. So they're all sort of looking back and thinking back on what's happened to them over the last 3 years and what they're going to now do in the future. And that said, it does feel a bit anticlimactic from a plot standpoint where the season kind of just ends. I mean, the final relay isn't very fleshed out at all. That happens in, I'd say, probably a minute, maybe 2, and then the episode just sort of fades away. I think it would be very great if the arcs of both Haru's team and Rin's team were taking place on 2 separate episodes. That way we would have that whole thing to be a little bit more fleshed out, and the emotional side as well as the plot side would have a lot more time to thrive, and it would make the final episode of this season a lot better than it already is. That said, it is a very good emotional climax with lots of callbacks and flashbacks to earlier seasons and earlier episodes. Like I said earlier, it really provides a nice cathartic ending for their high school years, as well as a really great flash forward into where they're going from now on. Speaking of which, I really love that teaser for the future that we see at the very end of the episode, with Haru and Rin appearing to be competing on some sort of international college level race. The animation in this season is great, just like in the first season. But beyond the animation, I just love the cinematic style of this kind of slice of life anime. It's shocking how visually interesting a show that's mainly consists of people talking can actually be. Firstly, they use a lot of really unique angles for conversation scenes, along with really nice B-roll insert shots in those scenes to keep it more visually interesting. On top of that, they're always set in such gorgeous environments with beautiful backgrounds and such unique and subtle animation in the characters as they speak to one another. It really brings up the level of this show, and it makes it so much more visually pleasing and interesting to see. Coming from the incredible opening theme of the first season of Free, this opening is so disappointing. It's honestly very basic and passable for a slice of life anime like this, but given how great and unique and intense the first opening theme was, this one just falls flat on its face. It's completely unmemorable, unrecognizable, and just plain generic. And sadly, it is not in any way similar to any Power Rangers opening. Overall, this season is very fun, and the second half of it is a very deep and interesting dive into these characters, into their past, and also their future. It provides a lot of catharsis and ending for their main story of high school and adolescence, and it provides a nice jumping off point for where the show can go from here, taking various paths, various storylines to follow, and various characters to continue to learn more about. And how it really connects the other 2 properties of this saga so well. It gives the anime a lot more of a continuous feeling and much more of a sense of an overall story. It genuinely feels like we are watching these characters not just in one story, not just in one event, one season, one race, but throughout their entire lives. Even if their paths don't take them into swimming as a career, I can see this show continuing to follow them as characters, because that is really what this show is about. Because that's really what this show is about. The characters, not the events. It is a strongly character-driven story. Thank you all for watching this installment of the anime review. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment, maybe even subscribe. Thank you all again for watching, and have a nice day. I've been looking on the internet. There really aren't any. It doesn't seem like they exist. It really doesn't. Which is very, very disappointing, because I really, really want a Karl Marx bobblehead. I think that would be awesome. That would be hilarious. Just a little Karl Marx right here. Just right here by my side. Just Karl Marx. I think that would be hilarious. But I cannot seem to find them anywhere. It's very, very saddening.